Hello, and welcome to Storytime with Empress Tanya. Today we will read The Tale of the Hunters of the Shadowlands, so let's get into it. In a quiet, unassuming corner of the bustling city, there was a man named Alan. Alan was a peculiar creature of habit. Every morning, he would wake up at 5 a.m. sharp, brew a cup of strong black coffee, and sit by his window to watch the sun rise. He'd sit there, his eyes half closed, until the caffeine had sufficiently woken him up and the world outside had transformed from shadowy shapes into a concrete reality. His apartment was small, but meticulously organized, a testament to his minimalist lifestyle. There were no paintings on the walls, no knick-knacks to gather dust. Only a few books, neatly aligned by size, graced the shelves, and a single chair, which faced the window. One morning, as the first light of dawn began to filter through the blinds, a shadow passed by his window. It was unlike anything he'd ever seen before. Long, twisted, and unnaturally thin. It didn't belong in the world of order and routine that Alan knew so well. He blinked, rubbed his eyes, and looked again, but the shadow was gone. He told himself it was just his imagination playing tricks on him, a figment of his sleep-deprived mind. But deep down, he felt a chill that no amount of coffee could warm. Over the next few days, Alan noticed more peculiarities. The same shadow would appear at random intervals, always fleeting and just out of focus. His friends, 5 of them, as different as night and day, started to share similar experiences. They'd glimpse it in the corner of their eyes, feel it lurking in the alleyways, and hear whispers when no one was around. They gathered in Alan's apartment, trying to make sense of the unexplained events. They were 5 mortal friends, bound by fate, and now, by fear. They decided to investigate, hoping that understanding would bring them peace. Their search led them to an ancient tome, buried in the dusty archives of the local library. It spoke of a demon called Eight, a creature with the power to manipulate shadows and bend reality to its will. The name sent a shiver down their spines, for it matched the shadow's form, except for one detail. 8 was known for having 8 limbs, not the 2 that Alan had seen. They pored over the pages, reading about its insatiable hunger for human suffering and its tendency to hunt in packs. The realization dawned on them: they were not dealing with a single demon, but a legion of them, each with its own sinister purpose. The friends were now the hunted, and the game was on. They could feel the demons closing in, their presence or palpable weight in the air. Each night grew longer, and the shadows grew thicker. Their laughter and camaraderie turned into tense silence as they barricaded themselves in Alan's apartment. They knew that they had to stand together or fall apart. But the question remained: how do you fight something that could be anywhere, watching from the very fabric of the darkness itself? They found their first clue in the whispers that had been haunting them. It was a name, a person that the demons sought with a fervor that was almost palpable. And quot, Victoria, and quot, they heard in the rustling of the leaves outside, in the creaking of the floorboards, and in the static of a radio. Left on too late. The friends knew Victoria from their local book club, a vibrant young woman with a penchant for the macabre. Her curiosity had always been a beacon, but now it had painted a target on her back. They decided to warn her, hoping that by doing so, they could protect her and perhaps learn more about their own predicament. They approached Victoria's house with caution, the shadows playing tricks on their eyes. The street lamps flickered erratically, casting eerie patterns on their pavement. When they arrived, they found her door ajar, the house eerily silent. Alan took the mead, his heart racing with every step. Inside, the house was a mess, books thrown from the shelves, furniture overturned, and a trail of something sticky and dark leading up the stairs. They called out her name, their voices echoing through the emptiness. Their search led them to a hidden basement, the air thick with the scent of decay. In the dim light, they found Victoria, cowering in the corner, her eyes wide with terror. She looked up at them, trembling, and whispered, "Unquat, they're here, unquat." Before they could react, a shadow detached from the wall, revealing an elongated, twisted creature with 8 limbs. The friends stared in horror as it opened its mouth, revealing a maw filled with razor-sharp teeth, and let out a guttural hiss. 8 had found them. The creature lunged, and in a flash of movement, Victoria was snatched away, her screams piercing the silence. The friends recoiled, their fear momentarily paralyzing them. But as the echoes of her cries faded into the shadowy abyss, they found their resolve. They had to save her. They had to fight. They turned to face the demon, their eyes searching the darkness for any sign of her. The basement was a labyrinth of shadows, each one seemingly alive and reaching out to them. Mark, the strongest among them, grabbed a heavy wooden chair and swung it with all his might. It connected with something solid, and a screech of pain resonated through the room. The shadowy figure retreated, and they saw Victoria struggling in its grasp. "Unquat, hold on, unquat," screamed Alan, his voice a mix of terror and determination. He rummaged through his pocket, his hand closing around the one thing that might save them all, his phone. He dialed 911, whispering a frantic prayer that help would come before it was too late. The others formed a protective circle around her, wielding whatever they could find: a crowbar, a fireplace poker, a shard of broken glass. They knew their weapons were pitiful against such a creature, but they had to try. The demon, seemingly amused by their defiance, dropped Victoria and took a step back, its 8 limbs weaving an intricate dance of menace. It spoke in a voice that was both a hiss and a growl. "Unquat. You think you can defy us, unquat." The walls around them trembled with the force of its words. Victoria, bruised and shaking, stumbled to her feet. "Unquat. You're not getting us. Unquat," she spat, her voice laced with a courage that surprised even her. The friends looked at each other, drawing strength from her words. They knew they had to act fast. Without warning, the demon lunged again, and this time, it was Rachel who stepped forward. Her hand darted to her neck, and she pulled out a small silver cross she'd worn since childhood. She held it high, and the creature recoiled, shrieking in pain as the light from the cross pierced its shadowy form. The friends took this as their cue to attack. The battle was fierce, a blur of human desperation and demonic fury. They fought with every ounce of strength they had, each strike and block a testament to their friendship and their will to survive. The creature was fast, its limbs a whirlwind of deadly intent, but they were determined. They had to be. Their lives and Victoria's depended on it. Their makeshift weapons clashed against the demon's shadowy body, and slowly, they began to wear it down. With each hit, the creature's shrieks grew more desperate, its movements less precise. They could see the light from Rachel's cross searing into it, burning it away. And then, with a final roar, the demon was gone, dissipating into the air like a puff of smoke. The basement was once again still, the only sound their ragged breathing and the distant wail of approaching sirens. They had won this round, but they knew it wasn't over. There were more of these creatures out there, and they had tasted fear, their favorite prey. The friends helped Victoria to her feet, and together, they made their way back up the stairs, into the relative safety of the night. They had no idea what lay ahead. Only that they had to be ready for it. They had stumbled into a world of darkness, and it was up to them to find a way back into the light. The sirens grew louder, and soon the house was bathed in the red and blue lights of the police cars that had arrived. The officers took their statements, but their eyes held a doubt that said they didn't quite believe the tale of shadows and demons. Yet, there was something in the way the friends spoke, a shared terror that was too real to be fabricated, that kept them from dismissing it entirely. After hours of questioning and filling out reports, they were allowed to leave. The night had turned to a cold grey dawn, the kind that seemed to whisper that the horrors of the night weren't quite over yet. They decided to split up, to gather their thoughts and regroup. Each went to their own home, but sleep was elusive there. Minds racing with what they'd seen and what they knew was still out there. Days turned into weeks, and the friends continued to search for answers. They read every book on the supernatural they could find, hoping to understand the creature they'd faced and how to protect themselves. They discovered that it and its kin were drawn to fear and despair, feeding off the energy of those it stalked. They realized that their only defense was to stand strong, to face their own fears and support each other. The whispers grew louder, the shadows denser. They knew that it wasn't just hunting Victoria, it was hunting them all. They could feel it, a constant presence that shadowed their every move. A symphony of pain and hope. They used every tactic they had learned, every ounce of strength they had gained. Rachel's cross blazed like a star, holding back the tide of darkness. Alan's strategic minds directed their movements, turning the shadows against their creator. Mark's fury was a storm that raged through the room, and the others wielded their own weapons of faith, knowledge, and courage. And when the dust settled, 8 lay defeated before them, its shadowy form dissipating into the ether. The friends stood panting, their hearts racing, their bodies bruised but not broken. They had faced the nightmare and come out into the light. The whispers stopped, the shadows retreated, and the city breathed a sigh of relief it didn't know it had been holding. They had become legends in the hidden world, guardians against the creatures that lurked in the corners of human imagination. But they knew it wasn't over. There would always be more darkness, more fears to conquer. They had been given a purpose, a reason to stand together. And as the sun rose over the city, casting its warm glow on their weary faces, they vowed to continue the fight. For Victoria, for themselves, and for all those who lived in the shadow of 8's kin. Their story had only just begun, and it was one that would echo through the annals of time. A tale of friendship, of bravery in the face of the unspeakable, and of the eternal struggle between light and dark. They were the hunters of the Shadowlands, and their legacy would live on as long as there was fear to feed the demons, and as long as there were those willing to stand against them. Their victory had been hard fought, but it was a hollow one. The Night of Eights. Defeat had been followed by an eerie silence, a calm before the storm that none of them could shake. They had become so attuned to the whispers and shadows that even in their moments of triumph, they felt the cold embrace of fear. It was in this uneasy quiet that they gathered again. In Alan's apartment, their sanctuary turned into a war room. And it was here, on an otherwise ordinary evening, that the unthinkable happened. As they sat around the table, maps and books sprawled before them, a chilling laughter filled the room. It was a sound that seemed to resonate from every corner, a taunting echo that sent ice down their spines. The shadows grew thick once more, and from their midst, 8 emerged, grinning malevolently. And quat, falls, and quat, it hissed, its 8 limbs unfurling like the petals of a twisted flower. And quat, you think you can vanquish me so easily? And quat, the friends leaped into action, but their movements felt sluggish, weighed down by dread. Rachel raised her cross, her hand trembling slightly, but the light it cast was no less brilliant. Mark hefted the crowbar that had become his signature weapon, while the others reached for their own makeshift arsenal. But 8 simply waved a shadowy appendage, and a wave of darkness washed over them. When the light returned, Rachel's cross lay shattered on the floor, its power extinguished. The creature's form had changed. It was now more terrifying than ever before. A grotesque amalgamation of their deepest fears. And quat, you see, and quat, 8 whispered, and quat, I am not so easily defeated. For as long as there is darkness in the hearts of men, I will endure. And when you destroy me, you destroy yourselves. For in slaying me, you become that which you despise. And quat, the room grew cold, and the friends felt a chill that no fire could warm. The demon's words had struck a chord within them, a dark truth that resonated in their very souls. They had become the protectors of the city, the guardians against the creatures of the night, but at what cost? They had to think quickly, to find a new way to fight, a way that didn't rely on the destruction of their enemy, but rather on the strength of their bond and the light within their hearts. For they had learned that fear was a double-edged sword, one that could empower the demons just as easily as it could destroy them. And so, with a newfound understanding of their role in this endless dance of shadow and light, they set forth into the night. The whispers followed them, a constant reminder of the battle they had chosen. Yet, as they moved through the streets, their steps grew surer, their hearts lighter, for they knew that together, they could conquer any fear, any darkness that sought to claim them. The night was theirs to protect, and they would do so with every ounce of their being. The hunt had only just begun, and they were ready to face whatever lay ahead. The friends grew stronger with each encounter, each victory, and each heart they helped heal. They learned that the demons of shadow were not just creatures of the night, but manifestations of the pain and suffering that lurked in the hearts of men. And it was by bringing light to these dark places that they could truly vanquish the monsters that threatened their world. Their battles became less about the physical and more about the emotional and spiritual. They sought out those who were lost in despair and offered them a glimmer of hope, a hand to pull them from the abyss. They became counselors, confidants, and sometimes, simply a presence to remind people that they were not alone. The city grew brighter, the shadows less oppressive. The whispers of 8 faded into the background, a distant echo of a terror that no longer had a hold over them. Yet, the friends knew that their work was never done. There would always be darkness, always be those who needed their light. But they faced each night with the same courage and unity that had brought them this far. And as they continued their crusade, they realized that the true enemy was not the demon before them, but the fear within themselves. By facing it, by acknowledging it, and by standing together, they had the power to strip 8 of its strength. One by one, the friends faced the dark reflections of their own fears, their own demons that 8 had brought to the surface. They battled not just for their lives, but for their very souls. Each victory over these personal terrors weakened the demons' hold on the city, and the whispers grew fainter. Yet, as they grew in power, so too did 8. It had been feeding on their fears, growing stronger with every encounter. One fateful night, it grew bold enough to confront them all at once. The friends had never seen the creature so massive, so twisted. Its eyes burned with a hunger that seemed to consume the very air around them. The battle was fiercer than any they had faced before. The shadows danced and writhed, and the air was thick with the stench of fear. Rachel's cross, once a beacon of hope, now hung limp and powerless around her neck. Mark's rage was a tempest that threatened to consume him, and the others felt the weight of their fears pressing down on them. And then, in a moment of desperation, something within them changed. They realized that their fear was not a weakness, but a weapon they could wield. They embraced the shadows, letting their own fears become a part of them, and in doing so, they found a new strength. They became one with the night, and the shadows obeyed their will. In a display of unity and power, they struck out at 8. Each blow was fueled by the courage they had discovered in themselves, and each strike landed with the force of their combined wills. The demon reeled, its form flickering as if it were made of nothing but shadow. But it was not enough. 8, now a colossus of malice, swiped a massive limb and sent the friends flying. As they lay there, dazed and bruised, the creature loomed over them. The room grew cold, the air thick with the scent of death. The whispers grew into a deafening roar, filling their minds with images of their own demise. The friends looked into each other's eyes, knowing that this might be their end. But they also saw something else, a spark of hope, a glimmer of the light they had brought into so many lives. They reached out, their hands joining in a circle of friendship, and with a shout that seemed to shake the very foundations of the city, they channeled their fears into a final, desperate attack. The room was bathed in a blinding light, the air charged with an energy that seemed to shatter the very fabric of reality. The demon let out a scream of rage and agony, and then it was gone. The shadows retreated, the whispers silenced, and the friends lay there, panting and exhausted. But the victory was short-lived, for as the light faded, 8 emerged once more, its form untouched by their combined might. It had grown stronger, feeding on their very essence. The friends looked at each other, their hearts heavy with the realization that they had played into the demon's game. The creature lunged, and in a flurry of shadow and steel, the battle reached its climax. But it was a battle they could not win. One by one, they fell, their hearts stilled by the cold embrace of the demon's power. The light in their eyes dimming as the darkness consumed them. And as the final friend lay dying, 8 leaned in close, whispering, and quote, "You are mine now. Your fears are my strength. Your city is mine to feast upon," unquote. The friends looked into the creature's malevolent eyes, and in that moment, they realized their ultimate failure. They had become the very things they had sworn to destroy. The darkness had consumed them, and in the end, it was the demon that emerged victorious. The city mourned their loss, the shadows grew thicker, and the whispers grew louder. But amidst the sorrow, there remained a spark of hope. For in their hearts, the friends had planted a seed, a belief that even in the darkest of times, there was always a way to fight back. And though they had fallen, their legacy lived on, inspiring others to take up the fight. The tale of the Hunters of the Shadowlands became a cautionary one. And that was the tale of the Hunters of the Shadowlands. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you all next time for Storytime with Empress Tanya.